Over the past couple years, we've had the invention and a bunch of new baits coming out, such as the dice style baits. So we've had some customers that have wanted to fish them and specifically on a drop shot, but they didn't know what all they needed in order to actually set up their drop shot rig. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna walk you through the two different types of drop shot that you can fish. The first one's gonna be a weedless or Texas rig style. And then the other one is going to be a nose hook style. So let's get started. Yes. Hold on, don't grab it. Let's go.
That's a giant one. You did not miss a deal.
No. So first what we're gonna do is we're just gonna kind of explain exactly what a drop shot is. So essentially what you're gonna have is you're gonna have your bait that is gonna sit directly above your weight. So your weight is gonna stay in constant contact with the bottom, and your bait is either gonna be suspended or, depending on the type of bait you're gonna throw, it's gonna slowly sink down. So whether you're fishing a worm style or like a Ballastic style material is going to depend on whether or not your bait is going to float. Okay, so when it comes to hook options, there's going to be two different options. The first one is going to be for a nose hook presentation, and then the next one is going to be for a Texas rig or weedless presentation. So what we're going to do is we're going to first start with these. This is an owner cover shot hook. Essentially what this is, it is a like white wire flipping hook that has a straight shank. So, and the other nice part about this owner cover shot hook is it's gonna come with that bait keeper. So you are not gonna, when you are, pulling this thing over some branches or limbs, this worm isn't gonna pull down the base of the hook, and you're not gonna end up with like a giant clump. So this is gonna maintain its really natural presentation as you're pulling this thing through cover. So if you are gonna fish this weedless, you are gonna need something with a straight shank hook. Now, if you want to fish the nose hook application, the owner Mosquito Light, in my opinion, is one of the best. And not only is it a good, strong hook, it's also very cost effective. You can buy either the small packs or they sell the pro packs for like $15, which come with about 50 hooks. So for the nose hook application, essentially what you are going to do is you are going to take your like minnow style bait, like this is a baby Z2, you're going to come in the bottom and right out the top. And that is what it is going to look like after it is rigged. So you will need two different style hooks depending on the type of bait that you're going to throw. So as I explained, the Robo Worm is a good one if you want to fish something that's Texas rigged. If you want to fish something on a nose hook, a Max Scent Flatworm is good. A Megabass Hazdong shad and a 3-inch is a good option. And then one of my favorites is the Baby Z2 from Strike King. It's an Ballastic material. It's going to maintain a horizontal position in the water column since it is that Ballastic material. The other option that you can do with the straight shank hook is you can rig like a full-size Z2 and actually thread that bait on. So as you can see, that hook is coming out the back. And why this is important is when you are fishing like say a 5-inch Z2, you need something that's going to get that hook a little bit farther back in the bait so that when a fish does come up and strike this, they're not just going to tail strike it. You have a much better opportunity to get a good hookup with that hook being set farther back in that bait. The other nice part is with that bait keeper, again, it's going to keep that Z2 in that more natural looking presentation. So if you do want to fish the full size, I recommend using one of those owner cover shot hooks, just allowing you to get that hook placement back a little bit farther on the bait. Okay, so if you don't know how to exactly tie your hook to your drop shot rig, there's a couple different options. If you would like to see us do a more detailed video on how to actually tie your hook to your drop shot rig, leave a comment down below. What we'll do is we'll make a more in-depth detailed video on that. However, if you don't want to worry about all that, Gamakatsu makes this swivel shot drop shot hook, and essentially what you have is you have a swivel attached to this hook. So all you're going to do is you're going to tie your line directly to the top here, and then you're just going to add a small piece of line for however far you want your weight to sit. The nice part about this is this does swivel around, which is going to prevent line twist. The other nice part about this is since this is tied directly to your line, your hook is going to sit perfectly straight. So if you are someone that doesn't want to, learn on how to tie your hook and you want the ease of just, tying this thing on, this would be a great option for you. They are a little bit more expensive, but once again, the ease of tying this thing on will save you some time if you are not familiar with how to tie that hook on. Okay, so when fishing a drop shot, there's a few different types of weights. You can use one of two options. You can use either lead or tungsten. Tungsten is going to be a little bit more expensive. Typically when I fish a drop shot, I'm just using lead. You are going to get weights that hang up in rocks. It's really inevitable, so you're going to break weights off. To me, it's the cost doesn't outweigh the benefit from using tungsten. So I typically prefer to use these cylinder style. There are teardrop style and cannonball style weights as well too. So depending on the type of structure or bottom that you're fishing, you may want to change your weights. If you're fishing more grass, the cylinder style weights will be better. If you're fishing around rock, the teardrop or cannonball weights will be a better option for you too. Okay, so there's a couple different style weights that you can choose from. One of them is going to feature just like a line pinch. The other one is going to have a swivel on it, if you can see that in the video. To use the line pinch ones, what you're going to do is you're just going to slide your line through the bottom here, and you're just going to pull it up to the top. Once this thing is slid all the way up to the top, it's not really going anywhere. You don't have to worry about it. Some guys will tie a small knot. I typically just pinch it. If it does get caught up, sometimes I can just pull that line through eventually. That is one option. The other option is the one with the swivel head. And what you are going to need is a Great Lakes Finesse drop shot clip. So essentially what you're going to do is you're just going to tie one of these onto your line at the bottom, and then the weight will just clip in. The nice part about using one of those is you can use the same weights for a free rig as well as your drop shot. So you're not going to need, two different style weights in order to fish a drop shot and a free rig. So if you're looking for a way to be able to save you a little bit of money on your tungsten, that's a great option. Okay, now for line, there are a couple different options. You can either use straight fluorocarbon to your reel, or what my preference is to use some sort of braid. Sunline, Seaguar, Power Pro are all good options in my opinion. I typically stick to this Sunline X Plasma in about 12 pound. Sometimes I'll drop it to 10. And then when you are fishing braid, you are going to have to tie a leader. If you are tying a leader, there is no question that you should be using fluorocarbon and not monofilament. Okay, so the reason that you are going to use fluorocarbon as your leader material is because it's going to be 100% invisible underwater. It's also going to be more abrasion resistant. If you are fishing around rock or some sort of structure, you don't have to worry about it getting nicked up as quick as, like, say, monofilament line. Now, when it comes to fluorocarbon, there are a ton of different options out there. You are going to want to use a higher quality fluorocarbon. You don't necessarily have to use this FC leader material. You can use the FC sniper, but you are going to want to make sure that you pay attention to line diameter. For instance, Sunline diameter compared to, say, a Berkeley diameter is going to be much smaller. So if you are struggling to get bites and you're using, say, a cheaper fluorocarbon, you need to pay attention to your line diameter. For instance, a 10 pound or an 8 pound Sunline may be something equivalent to like a 12 or 14 pound fluorocarbon, depending on the brand that you're using. So when you are picking a fluorocarbon, you want to get away with the smallest pound test that you can, or smallest line diameter. The reason you want to pick the smallest fluorocarbon is it's just going to give your bait a much more natural presentation in the water. When you are using braid and you're attaching your fluorocarbon leader to it, there are a couple knots that I would say I would tend to stick to, one being the FG knot and the other one being the Alberto knot. Once again, if you would like to see a more in-depth detail on how to actually tie these knots, be sure to leave a comment down below and we'll make a more detailed video on how to actually tie the best leader knot for you. There are other options out there like the double uni. However, when you are using rods with smaller guides, you want the smallest knot size possible so that that line can freely travel through your guides. For me personally, I usually like to run a longer leader what I do is I take that knot to about the spool and I crank the handle about 3 or 4 more times. The reason that I run a longer leader is it just allows me to not have to retie that leader knot as frequently throughout the day. If I do break off, I typically still have enough leader on that I can just throw a new hook and weight on and I'm back to fishing. It helps speed up the process and it gets you fishing much quicker, especially if you are fishing, something in a tournament setting and you're not just out there fun fishing. So once again, if you'd like to see a detailed video on how to tie the Alberto knot and the FG knot, be sure to leave a comment down below and we'll walk you through how to actually and properly tie those knots. All right, so we've covered all of the tackle, the weights, the line, the baits that you're gonna need in order to fish a drop shot. If there's anything that we've missed or something that you want a little bit more detail about, specific baits or anything like that, be sure to let us know. We'll be happy to walk you through that. You can leave us a comment or anything below. Now, we're going to change gears and talk about rods and reels. So there are a ton of different options out there when it comes to picking the right reel. However, the one thing that you are going to want to make sure is that you have a reel with a good drag system. Remember, this is a finesse technique. You need something with a great drag that allows that fish to pull out line with very little startup needed. So once again, there are a ton of reels and a ton of different price points. They start at anywhere from $50 all the way up to $860. So if you want the best of the best, the Daiwa Exist, in my opinion, is it. This thing's got such a great drag system that it allows that fish to pull out line when it's diving away from you, but it also has the power to be able to horse that fish in when you need it. So once again, this is a 3,000 size. I would stay in that 2,500 to 3,000. When you do go to a 3,000 size, you get a slightly larger spool. The line's just able to come off a little bit easier. So once again, 2,500 to 3,000. You want something with a good drag, Daiwa Exist is the best option. If you want something in a more budget friendly, somewhere in that 200 to 250, the Daiwa Ballastic is also a great option. It's very similar to the Vanford in that aspect. However, the Daiwa Ballastic is going to come with a heavier bail on it. So if you're one of the guys that happens to step on your bails on the front of the boat, you might want to consider the Daiwa Ballastic. It's just going to help that bail hold up a little longer. The Shimano Vanford, once again, is one of our best-selling reels. The newer one is going to come with a Duracross washer in it. So it's a kind of a cross between a felt and a carbon fiber washer. So you're going to get the sensitivity and the feel of felt. However, you're going to get the durability of having that carbon fiber washer. So that's just another good option for you. One thing to pay attention to, when you do step up from the 2,500 size, you are going to get that smaller size handle. And then when you jump to the 3,000 size, you're going to get that T style power handle, if you will. So that's just something to keep in mind, depending on whether or not that's something that you like. If you're looking for something in that like $100 or less, the Daiwa Fuego is another great option. And then if you're a Shimano guy, Shimano Nascis, they come in at $99, so it's going to be under that $100 price point. So once again, just to recap, stay in that 2,500 to 3,000 size range, and then make sure that you have a reel with a good drag. You don't want to have to be either trying to pull line out yourself or opening your bail. What that's going to do is it's just going to allow that fish to spit that hook. Okay, so now we're going to move on to rods, and just like reels, there's a ton of different options and price points for everyone. So one thing that you are going to want to make sure is that you don't just walk to a specific manufacturer and pick up their drop shot rod. For instance, this is the NRX 822S drop shot rod. This rod is not going to fit everyone's needs when it comes to fishing a drop shot. For instance, this is a 6'10", it's a 1/8 to 3/8 ounce. This is going to be a perfect rod if you are fishing light line, lighter weights, and nose hook applications. This rod is just going to be a little bit too flimsy if you're throwing, up to 3/8 ounce. I know it's rated to 3/8, but really 3/8, this rod's just a little bit too whippy. You can't necessarily get that long cast away from the boat if that's what you're trying to do. So in that case, what you're going to want is to jump up to like the 7'1" medium jig and worm rod. Just because a rod says it's a jig and worm does not mean it won't work for a drop shot application. So the one thing you are going to want to make sure you pay attention to is the lure rating. if you are fishing something like a Texas rig or that weedless presentation, you're going to want something that has a little bit more backbone that really allows you to set that hook properly and that you are able to penetrate that hook through the fish's mouth. So there's a bunch of different options. My favorite drop shot rod when you're fishing something like a Texas rig or heavier weights, for us, we fish Lake Erie, the Detroit River. You're going to need to fish 3/8 to ½ ounce weights typically. My favorite rod in that option is going to be the Megabass P5 Destroyer. This rod's rated up to a ½ ounce. Throwing ½ ounce weights on it, it handles it with no problem. You're still able to get those long cast away from the boat. So once again, just be sure you don't walk in and pick up the first rod you see that says drop shot. Depending on where you're fishing, the type of fishing, whether it's the nose hook or weedless application, not every drop shot rod is going to fit your needs. So as I said, there's a bunch of different options and all different price points for everyone. So if you're looking for something, in that lower price point, you can look in the Dobbins lineup or the Cash-In lineup. If you are looking for something in that mid price point rod, some of our best sellers are going to be like the Shimano Expride, the Daiwa Zillion, and then if you're looking for something in that $400 and up, Megabass X10 Medusa is a great option for a drop shot rod. The P5 Destroyer Addermine is another good option, and then the Steez rod from Daiwa and the NRX from G Loomis. So if you need help, really narrowing down a good option for you based on the type of bait you're looking, leave us a comment down below. We'll be happy to point you in the right direction on which rod to choose. Okay, so the last thing that I want to mention and touch on is when I see people fishing a drop shot for the first time, they're really doing too much work. And for us especially, when we fish up at, say, Lake Erie, the Detroit River, St. Clair, there's so much current in the water that you don't necessarily realize that does majority of the work for you. So you got to understand that when you're fishing at the bottom, there's so much current down there that it's actually moving the bait a lot for you. You don't have to, jerk and twist and, move your rod around in a bunch. When you do, it's just creating such a weird darting action underneath the water that is really going to draw a fish away from actually, eating that bait. So once again, just to recap, don't overwork the bait. Let the current and the underwater motion of the water really do a lot of that work for you. So if you have any other further questions, be sure to leave a comment down below. Give us a call at the store, 513-869-2248. You can leave us a message on Facebook, Instagram. You can stop in the store and we'll be happy to help get everything you need to make sure that when you go out and fish a drop shot, you have the right equipment, the right tackle, and everything else. So if you have any other questions, be sure to let us know. If not, we will see you guys on the next one. Thanks.